when it hit it. So yeah, we're just looking today at the little album by Rise Against here, Appeal to Reason. I know that this is the first full Rise Against album that I've ever heard, and I think that most people know it from the one song that's on Guitar Hero. That's where I first heard it, but it's when they started getting played on the radio more often, I think, from this album. And I don't know about album sales, but it could be one of their biggest albums. I think most people who I talk to about this band are the most familiar with this album. And I thought I'd pick it because I was thinking that I don't think that you had heard this album before, so I wanted to get your perspective, actually. So that's why I kind of picked it to see, because I know it was pretty influential, like back in the day when I discovered it. Like I liked it. I can't say that another Rise Against album quite hits like any of the other ones. Like for me, like I've tried other albums, and there's a couple that are pretty good too. But this one, for some reason, I don't know if it's like the first time I heard a full album from them. That's why it's like nostalgic for me. But it could be just because that it is one of the best. You know, like even the guy at work I talked to, he said he went to go see Rise Against, and he was most familiar with that album. So could be the Guitar Hero influence. Who knows, right? But am I right? That is the first time you heard this album?
Yeah, I do believe not from the Guitar Heroes. I do believe this was they had that they were heavy on the rotation on the radios.
Yeah.
For this one particular song. Oh, sorry, I wasn't prepared. Let me grab my notes.
Yeah, grab those notes. And like, it's funny that a radio can kill a song like that. And usually, even with a song that's played on the radio a lot, if you haven't heard it in a long time, you hear it again. And if it is a good song, it does kind of bring it back. But the radio definitely just overplayed this song. Definitely, Sonic is definitely a Rise Against radio station. Definitely, they're the only ones that really play it, and they just overplay that song for sure. The Re-Education to Labor, right?
Re-Education
Through
Labor. So this was
yes.
This was their 2007, correct?
Yeah, 7 or 8, yeah.
Right. So, yeah, no. So you heard it through sorry, just looking at something here.
Guitar Hero, yeah. That was one song.
Yeah, Guitar
Hero, kind of exactly almost when they just started like overplaying it on the radio, really, right? Like,
yeah, right.
That's definitely a band.
That's the first time I heard this bad boy. Sorry, which Guitar Hero did this come off of?
I think it's a secret song. Like when you have bonus tracks in the third Guitar Hero, there's a set of bonus tracks that are almost just as good as the game, if not better. Some people debate it because there's really, really good songs in the bonus tracks, and it's not actually part of it's not actually part of the official game unless you're just trying to collect more points, I believe. And that was one of the secret songs that you end up getting when you beat the game. It does whole list of songs, right? Like Kill Switch, and that's where I want to say Through the Fire and Flames.
So this would have been what, Guitar Hero 3?
Yeah.
The third one?
Yeah.
Third installment, maybe? Am I correct or not correct?
Yeah, it's the third, but it's part of the bonus track, so it's not
the bonus track. Yeah,
it's not part of the actual set list to beat the game.
No.
I
do recall the that Kill Switch song that you get unlocked there. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a difficult one to play on that one, I do believe.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So as a run through, you know, you were mentioning on the phone the other day something about the Offspring.
Yeah.
Did you bring that up just because this has a particular kind of does it remind you of Offspring in a particular type of way?
Well, I think like yeah, so
tonality and overall sound, or
usually when you I think when you hear a band for the first time, or even like Even just listening to a band, you kind of think of other bands that might sound particular to that band to kind of try to categorize it in your own categorize of music to try to pinpoint where exactly you heard something like this before. And it took me a while to come up with that conclusion, but Offspring seems to be the most similar type of band with a singer that on both sides of the bands don't really sound like anybody else, and you can pinpoint them out like, oh, that's Offspring, oh, that's Rise Against, and they're heavy with
Right.
fading in with the bass or fading out with the guitar and in with the bass heavy for like a verse and then kicking back in and also with a lot of slides. If you notice a lot the guy does a lot of slides with like intro coming back in after the bass and Offspring does similar type of style like that where you can't really pinpoint whether it's like punk or like punk rock or rock punk is what I thought of earlier. It's not because punk rock is kind of like already coined as a phrase, but rock punk is kind of like it's like it doesn't sound like punk, but there's punk in it, you know?
I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah,
I do believe that their first four albums were more. I think they're categorized, from what I understand, as more hardcore. I do believe that's the sound that they were categorized in is a hardcore punk or just hardcore maybe. Yeah, and then this fourth album that we're talking about is it the fourth album or the fifth one. This one
fourth, I believe. Or is it five? Is it
could be the
five?
fourth. This is the fifth one. So there's
Fifth one.
four albums before this.
Yeah,
And from what I understand, this has a departure from the first four albums, which were a little more of the hardcore sound, just in general. And this one had more of a commercial, more radio friendly appeal, I guess you would say.
I would agree.
Uh, yeah, and that's fantastic because what it did, I think, is brought this sound to a whole new group of people that wouldn't necessarily be listening to Rise Against. You hear it on the radio. It's on the video game. You don't have to be part of an underground scene to know what Rise Against is about or whatever. So that's kind of cool. I thought when I heard it, it sounded a lot like it reminded me of Bad Religion a little bit,
Yeah,
like just a little more polished up, friendlier tone than Bad Religion, which is pretty cool. I kind of got those vibes from this album.
that's
I don't know
funny.
what your favorite song off this album is. What would you say your favorite track is if you had to go to a track on it?
Right before we go there, I'm just gonna go back to what you said about the underground, and
Oh, sure.
if I'm not mistaken, I recognize and I think I've heard this before. I'd have to check my facts and don't quote me, but it's possible that Fat Records, right? Um
That's Fat Mike, correct?
yeah, I think he was the one who originally signed on their first album under the Fat Records. And like Fat Records is kind of like underground, like a little bit. Like they're not like mainstream, right? They're like their own their own thing, right? It's no effects. It's like or it's not no effects, it's Fat Mike's record company, right? And he's never been mainstream because that's not what punk is, right? So it is kind of underground start, right? And you're right. Everybody that had gotten onto any of those Guitar Hero games definitely launched what they were trying to do, right?
Oh, that's a huge franchise to get your music out there. Yeah, that's an audience that definitely would not have picked up a Rise Against album per se and been like, you know, uh, introduced to it in any other way. So yeah, that's fantastic. But yeah, Underground a little bit for the first two albums were definitely more underground for sure.
I
Um,
yeah, so picking a song is a little hard for me, but I know like the first three tracks drop pretty hard, and the last track definitely ends off good. It might be the hardest one on the album, the last track, and there's a few like ones in the middle that really hit harder, but I think they have a good balance between it, like starting off with a good like three track, kind of like another couple albums that we've reviewed And then, but I think it's important to end it off with a bang too. And what's the last track? Underwhelming or unworthy, unworthy, I believe. And
Okay,
I think that's
I'll agree with
one of
you.
my favorite tracks, is because it's not one of the radio mainstream ones, and usually I do pick off an album something that isn't one of the mainstream songs, unless it is really that good. Which the Re-Education to Labor is probably like one of the second or third favorite songs on the album, but the last track I think is my favorite.
Oh,
Hard,
geez,
very
that
hard for me to
re-education.
pinpoint. You got the
Yeah,
label.
that
The,
re-education through labor. That geez, that was on. I think it debuted at the what was it? Top 10 on the Billboard. It was there for quite some time as well. It stuck around on that top 10. It might have been number two or something on the Billboard. If I had to, I'd have to go back and take a look. But I was reading through the discography there, a little bit of notes. But yeah, it came in and it stuck around for quite some time on
do
the
you
Billboard
you don't have the list
top
in front of
top
you, do you?
200. Top 100. No, I don't have the list through in front of me. But just before we scoot on to another topic, I found that the entertainment, the song "Entertainment" off that album,
Yeah, yeah.
really good song. A little bit of a departure from the rest of the album. I thought kind of a different take. Uh, good commentary lyrically wise on there, and just sonically a good song. That would be my take if I had to pick one.
I know they hit hard with like political views, and you could tell that their lyrics are thought about more than just like thrown down. They kind of come up with some good things that make a whole theme to like an album or a theme to a song, right?
From what I understand, they do a lot of. From what I could take on this, it's a lot of songs about the Iraq War. I do believe they have some political commentary on George W. Bush in there.
Yeah,
Some very patriotic stuff about the flag and so on and whatnot. Yeah, but you
that
know
is.
what? If you're not really just if you're not really like listening to the lyrics, it doesn't come across as like over the top
Yeah,
political stuff. Yeah,
right,
it
right.
doesn't need to be in your. It's commenting on it, but it's not like in your face too much where you're like, oh wow, that's some political stuff, you know.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
if
You're
you
right.
do listen to the lyrics, definitely some good political commentary in there for sure.
So that
What
one,
else did we have here? I had the.
what was
Go
that?
ahead.
That one song, that
No,
acoustic
by all
song
means.
that you're talking about with the flag, it's kind of like this whole thing that paints a picture of how the guy goes to war and he's supposed to be celebrated as being this like hero, but he's like basically like a mass murderer, right? Like it's like the country glorifies war, and he goes and does some terrible things, and he comes home the hero, right? And he just like feels bad about it because he doesn't consider himself a hero because some of the things that people do in war, you know what I mean? Like that's so it's like this controversial song about it being all like mellow and like should be like a love song when really it's like a hate love thing with the war and with being in the army. You know, you're considered a hero, but that's not how a lot of these guys feel, right? They either mass murdering or whatever they're doing there. It's not a pleasant thing to be in, but it's like glorified to be an American and be at war, right?
Yeah, I mean that's you pretty much nailed it on the head there. That's exactly it. You definitely get viewed as a hero, but you have to do things that wouldn't seem so virtuous, having to kill people and so on and so forth. But again, it's good political commentary. It's not over the top in your face, so I appreciate that.
So, what would you rate this album as? Like, not a per se, maybe of like maybe your like an overall of like your style of music or anything, but like as like a rock punk album, maybe, or however you want to categorize it, fitting in its spot of whatever genre it might be. What would you give it as a rating out of 10?
You know, I've listened to this now. for the last several days. I would put it on in the shower after getting home and just kind of play through it. And I think overall, you know what? This may not be my overall favorite style of music,
Yeah.
but you know what? I'm going to give this a solid. I'm going to give this a solid, and again, just my own personal opinion. I'm going to give this a solid 7.5 out of 10.
That's pretty solid because I think that's one of those albums that definitely grows on you. Like even to now, like I listen to it again. It's songs and stuff that you don't realize that's in the song, and you figure out new things about it, and I think you gotta like it the more you listen to it. Like most music, actually.
Yeah, I think that's pretty accurate. We were Hero of War is the one we're thinking about there.
Yeah, that's right. The
I
acoustic.
believe that's the that's the track. Pretty good stuff. I mean, the runtime on this is pretty. What's the overall runtime on this album? I can't four, 20, 24, 32. Okay, so it's under an hour for I think overall runtime,
Yeah, I
which is
think it's
pretty good.
yeah,
And how many tracks do we have? There's 13 tracks on this album.
yep.
13 tracks, and it's not running at more than an hour. I think that's fantastic. I think that says something about like that kind of punk mentality that we don't need these big long 6 minute orgasm songs where we stretch them out and have these big breakdowns and these big long solos and all that kind of stuff.
Not for punk music.
It's yeah, it's tight and compact, and I like that. You get into a 3 minute, 4 minute song, and you're good to go. I thought that was pretty refreshing, actually. Not a lot of long drawn out songs, needless solos or any kind of stuff like that. It was pretty good. I like that.
Very nice, very nice.
Yeah, overall, I think it's a good album. It's a good album. A lot of good songs on here, and like you're saying, the more you listen to it, it probably grows on you quite a bit more. I've only had the last what? When did you send this to me?
That was like
Just
Tuesday.
4 days ago or so.
Yeah, you only had a couple days
Yeah,
really, so yeah.
yeah. So yeah, no, I mean, all in all, I dig it. But yeah, there's some bangers on this one. There's some bangers for sure.
Right on. I think that's a
Good
pretty
bangers.
pretty solid review, and definitely.
Oh, you did what do you give it out of 10? I'm sorry, we didn't get your
Oh
overall
yeah,
take
right.
here.
So as that type of album, yeah, I think you're pretty close. I think I just because maybe I've heard it a little few more times, it's kind of more nostalgic for me. I'd probably give it like an 8, but like it's pretty close to what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that the only reason that it has a little bit more for me is probably just because it brings back a little bit more memories or something for me, right? But a solid 8, I think, is a pretty good number. Like it flows pretty decently. The album, like it's there's a couple in there that might be fillers to some people. I think it flows pretty good for me, but there's definitely tracks on there that aren't quite as good as some of the others, right? It's not like a smooth balance, but and if it was, then that'd be close to a 9 or 10. But yeah, I think that's about pretty close to your answer, right?
I think that's very, very accurate. I would have to say though, I did read some reviews. This band hits really, really super hard live. Like like listening to the album, like a lot with some bands, but not all bands. But this band in particular, the reviews from their live shows is phenomenal. I don't know if you seen them live.
I've never seen them live, no, but I would go to see them. That would
Uh,
be a band I'd check off the list because most bands I've seen now, I think like unless they're real good, I probably won't see them again unless it's like a real maybe, like. But yeah, this one I would go see definitely. Pay for that to happen.
yeah, I think seeing these guys live would put a whole different perspective
Yeah,
on the review. And if we ever did see them live, we'd have to come back and review the review and fill that in because live shows going to be a whole different animal than plugging it into your iPhone or your Samsung and playing it off your speaker. So definitely going to hit a little bit different. But good solid band. Some excellent songs. Like I said, I really like that entertainment song. It's a good commentary on the industry as a whole, and I thought that was it's got a good jam. I like that one.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna keep listening to this, Josh, and give it some more goes,
Yeah.
even though we're not on the reviews. But I'll put it in my repertoire because,
Yeah.
like I said, the only thing I've heard from these guys was off the radio, and they overkilled that one song to death for me. So I was like, wasn't too sure. But the other 12 tracks of the 13 are new to me, and they
Yeah.
were all very, very decent songs. So yeah,
Right
killer.
on. Well, we're running our 20-minute mark. I think that's a pretty solid review.
Okay. Hey, that's review number 3 in the bag.
Yeah.
And we're doing really good. We're getting hot. We're firing up here. Okay, and yeah, awesome. Let's tune in next time for the next review.
All right. Coming at you.
Coming at
Rockin' Music Reviews.
you.